Hey guys, welcome to Reese3D.com. I am Reese, and in this video I'm going to show you how to model this beautiful wooden house in Maya 2020. A couple of weeks ago I made the speed modeling of the same house, and I got a comment from the gods of the universe. Well, the gods are telling me, could you make a tutorial of this house? Well, how can I refuse the gods? So here it is. So let's start with one of the wooden pieces, and then we can actually duplicate to make those other pieces. So I'll go ahead and create a cube, and let's make it a bit shorter and longer. So that means width of, let's say, around 20. Okay, that's long. And height of, let's say, 0.2. That's thin enough, right? So I think I can make it a bit more longer. So let's say 30. That looks good. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to just rotate this guy, take the rotation tool, use the x-axis, which is the red color, and I'm going to rotate it, let's say around 60 degrees, maybe 70 degrees. That's perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to make these duplicates. So I'll just, in case if you're wondering how I got that move tool, there's a shortcut key that is W, and if you want rotation you can also press E, and if you want scale tool you can press R. So I'm just pressing the W key here, and I got exactly that. Cool. So now what I want is I want to make some copies of this. So let's press Control D as the shortcut key for making a duplicate. Then I want to pull it up, something like that. Cool. And then all I have to do is press Shift D again and again as many times as you want. You will get the number of copies that you want. So that is one of the walls of our house. So I think I want to make it a bit more taller, so let's just make it more. Okay, that looks good. So next thing that I want to do is I want to make other walls. So once I have this much, I'm going to select all of them, press Ctrl G to group them, so that makes things easier for us to move it. So let's make one more copy of this. Ctrl D, rotate him 90 degrees. There you go. And notice this should be the outside, so I'll actually go to my top view by pressing the space bar, and I can move it along like that. Okay, so don't worry about these edges, they does not have to match exactly, because we will put a piece of wood there just to hide those mistakes. Kind of cheating that we do. Okay, so now I want to just make these guys smaller, so I can just select one of those guys and press up arrow, so that'll select the entire group, and I can actually move the pivot point by using the insert key or D key. If you're in Mac, you will not have insert key, so you can use the D key, and I can just move him somewhere here. And if I want to snap it exactly on the grid, I can actually turn on the snap to grid there, and there you go. So now I can just press insert key once again to come out of the insert mode to change the pivot point. So now I can just scale it like so, and that's perfectly fine, and that's exactly what I wanted. So now what I can do is I can actually press Shift and select one of these guys, press up arrow, so that selects both these groups. If you want, you can also go to Window, Outliner, and there we have two groups. We can also select them like this. So there's hundreds of ways in Maya. You can do whatever you like. So now I'm gonna make one more group to group both those groups together into another group. So there's the group number 3, and I want to make a duplicate of this group. Control D, so that makes group 4. Is it confusing? Don't worry, just pause the video and you can play back again if you get confused. So let's make it 180 degrees. So that's an exact flip to make the other two walls. Okay, so the next thing that we want is we want to have the roof, right? So for the roof, I'm actually going to start with a cube and pull it up, and then I can actually push him right to the middle. Let me see. Okay, there you go. So the next thing that I want to do is I want to just go to my wireframe mode by pressing the 4 key, and I want to rotate this exactly 45 degrees. So 4 and 5. Okay, now when I have this in 45 degrees, the best thing that I can do is I can actually extrude from these two faces to create a perfect right angle extrusion. So that's exactly what I want to do, and before that I can actually make it a bit smaller by going here and pressing 0.5 for width, height and depth. Cool. And if you want, you can actually stretch it to the full length, or we can do that later also. Doesn't matter. So let me just make this go a little bit outside also. That's it. So now what I want is I want to go to face, select this face, and shift select this face. So two faces from both those sides. And I'm going to press shift and right click and choose extrude here. So what that's going to do is it's going to help us to pull it out like this. But we don't want this middle area, so what I can do is I can turn off the keep faces together. There it is. And that gives us exactly what we wanted. And I can actually see that it's not matching up with the wall. Basically we have more space here and we have less space here. So I'm going to just leave this extrusion as it is, and we can actually make a couple of modifications. So one thing that we can do is we can actually select these guys. So basically I'll just go back to my object mode here, select one, shift select this guy and press up arrow, so that'll select both these groups, right? And what I want to do is I want to go back to the scale tool, right? There you go. And I want to make this a bit more smaller. So either I can make it a bit more smaller or I can make it a bit more bigger, just to take one more extra grid space. So let me just make this a bit bigger so that it will go out like that. There you go. Now what happened was, because we have the rotation of 360 degrees, it is going in two different directions. So what I can do is I can simply delete one of these groups. Doesn't matter which one. Actually I should actually delete the other one, that is group 3, because this guy is matching up exactly with the space. Okay, so now what I can do is I can just make the duplicate once again, Control D, and that's going to be group 5, and this 180 degree rotation will become 0, and the translate Z15 should also become not 0, actually minus something. Let's figure out how much that is. And there you go. Now because I have the grid snap, it is matching up perfectly fine. Cool. Now if needed, we can actually stretch these guys a little bit more. So I'll have to do one more extrude here. So select this guy, shift select this guy, and do one more extrude. And we can just pull it out a little bit. Perfect. Okay, so now we need to do some deleting here, or we can actually stretch this up. Let me see how much is this height. I think that's somewhat okay, but I think I'll just pull this up like so. Yeah, I think that height is fine, right? So now we need to delete some unwanted stuff. So let's say I'll select, go back to the object mode, delete this one, 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5. There you go. And I'll do the same thing here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now we can actually turn on the wireframe on shaded mode, so that makes a bit more clarity here. Now what I want to do is I want to make one more copy of these guys. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, maybe 5 or 4, doesn't matter. If needed, we can just duplicate more as we need. So let's make a duplicate of that, pull this up. I need to turn off the grid snap there, and we can actually just see here through the side view, and I can pull these duplicates up. Now you need to be a bit more careful here, so we need to maintain the same distance between these points. So there you go. I think I need to make a couple of more changes here, a couple of more copies here. So let's say 1, 2, maybe 3. Control D, pull them up. There you go. And that's it. Okay, now I can just select these guys and delete them, because once I make one side I can actually duplicate to the other side, right? Now we need to make some adjustments here, so let's go ahead and select these vertices here, and we can scale the entire object, but we might have some little problem right here because they're not in this, they should not be in the same size from the top and the bottom, because the bottom has to be further outside. So let's select these guys and make them smaller. There you go. It doesn't matter, it does not have to be exactly the same angle because they'll be hidden inside. So select these guys, make them smaller. Select these guys and make them smaller like so. So now you can see they're basically fitting inside perfectly well. So I'll continue doing the same thing. This one and this one. Basically the side view is much better. Go to vertex, select all, make them smaller, select these top ones, make them smaller. Now through the magic of editing, I'm going to fast forward this step. Okay, so next thing that we want to do is we want to make a copy of the same to the other side. So let's go inside this group 5 and select this guy who's group 2. So this group 2 needs to be duplicated to the other side. So now let me press Ctrl D and then I can just move this to the other side. Okay, we need to flip it. We can also use the mirror tool, but I'm just going to flip it manually. So this is x-axis, so let me just give minus for x-axis, whatever value that is there. And I might have to move it to the other side. Cool. So we got all the 4 walls done. Now what we can do is we can actually hide those mistakes that we have right here in the edges by adding a piece of wood. So let's just create a cube. Move it to a corner. I can actually use my top view for reference. There you go. Let me see if I can turn on my grid snap. So that's going to snap it there. Perfect. And it's going to have height. Let me just take these vertices and just snap it there. Take these top vertices and I can just pull it up as much as I need. So I think I'll need to bring these 2 guys a little bit down, turn off the grid snap, and I can just adjust that like so. I'll make a copy of the same to the other side, Ctrl D, and I have my grid snap. Now if you don't want to turn on and off this grid snap every time, you can also press the shortcut key X. So if I press X and then move it to the other side, it's actually going to snap, and you can just release the X key and the snapping goes off, right? So let me just select these 2 guys, Control D, just move it to the other side, press X. If you want to snap, you'll have to press X before starting to move. So there you go. One last thing that I have to do here is I need to flip this or invert this. I can just do it simply by using the Z-axis scale as -1, and there you go. Okay, so that's the basic shape. So now what we need to do is we need to create the windows and doors, right? So for the window, what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually start with a cube. So let's start with a cube and make it bigger to the size that we want. So let's give the width to be 0.5 because we want the width to be a bit smaller. And height, let's give 3. No, it should be bigger than that. So let's say 5 should be good, I think. And if I just bring this over here, maybe 6. And for depth I can give 4. I think that looks pretty good, and I can actually bring him to one of these sides. Okay, so one more thing that we need to keep in mind is we need to make sure that it's touching one of these wooden pieces, so that will be easy for us to delete the unwanted space in between, right? So what I want to do here is for the height I can give something like 6.5, and I think that will be matching up somewhat well. If it is not, we can also manually move these guys. So let's say go to vertex and just select these 2 vertices, pull them up so that they match up with this height. Perfect. So down here and up here. That's it. So now let me just press 4 so that I can see what's going on here. Okay, so I think that thickness is fine. If needed, we can just pull it out. Not a problem. And now what I want to do is I want to make an extrude to create the detail of the window. I'm just going to pull this slightly out. Okay, good. So now I'm just going to select these 2 faces. Okay, so the one in the front and the one in the back. I'm going to press shift right click and choose extrude face. And I want to do a scale here, so let's press the scale. And then I want to just pull these guys like so. Now when you do this, because we have a rectangular shape, we will have a little bit longer space here and a little bit shorter space here. So what I can do is I can just simply adjust that a little bit just to match up with the space. Okay, so in Maya we're not going for the 100% accuracy, so it's not a problem. And I'm just deleting those 2 faces that we don't want in between. We can actually create a connection between them later, right? So next thing that we want to do is we want to give a little space here. So the easiest thing that I can do is I can simply select these guys and scale them smaller. So let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And all these 10, I can just take the scale tool, just make it smaller, just pull it to one side. That's it. So now all I can do is just simply select all of them, Control D, and duplicate to the other side. That's it, perfect. So now we have the window space here, and next thing that I want to do is I'll go to Edge, double click all these edges, and Shift double click all these other edges. So let's say, let me see if I can go inside here. It's still hidden, so let's press 4. There you go. So double click here, and I can go to Shift right click and choose Bridge. Okay, so what bridge does is it basically creates a connection between them. So it's much similar to fill hole, right? So once we have that space filled up, now I can add whatever content I want. Let's say maybe a plane to create a glass-like appearance, or another cube, or maybe even some wooden pieces. So let's say I'll go ahead and create another cube. Let me just push this right here in the middle, and I want to make the width, height, and depth to be 0.5, right? And let me just make sure that I have grid snap turned on and try to keep him right in the middle. Okay, so next thing that I want to do is I want to do a little extrude from here, from the center, and it needs to be, let's see, right from the top view. There you go. Perfect. So now what I want to do is I want to do an extrude from all these 4 sides. Let's just go closer. There you go. shift right click, extrude, and I can pull it out like so, and I'll turn off the keep faces together. Okay, if you want to make it a bit more thinner, you can. That's up to you. Just go ahead and select these guys and scale them up. That's it. So down here I should push him like so. Now if you think that you want to make these guys a bit wider, you can do that. Select these two, pull it out, select these two, scale them apart. That's it. One more thing, if you want to have the glass-like appearance, we can just go ahead and create a cube, or even a plane should work. Scale it up to fill that space. Make it thinner, basically as thin as possible. So let's see, 0.1. Yeah. Turn off the grid snap, and I can just keep it like so. Okay, and for him we can actually apply a transparent material. So let's say something like standard surface, and I can go to standard surface and choose here a preset like glass, frosted glass. Replace 100%. Okay, so that makes it more like a glass, and you still have that reflection and refraction, things like that coming out. Okay, so that's one of the windows. And if you want, you can actually create other windows and doors and stuff like that. Let's just create one more door that's for the main front door, and it's the same process that we did right here. So I can even just duplicate this shape that I have here, Control D, pull it out just to save time, unless you want to have a different kind of design for the front view. I'll choose 90 degrees here, pull the top view. That makes things easier for us to move. Press X key to snap. Okay, so right here I want to put him in the middle. Okay, and the height we can actually maintain the same height. Only thing that I have to do is I have to make the bottom a bit more longer, right? So let it touch the ground. There we go. We can actually make this a bit wider also. Not that much. That's it. So we also need to make these guys shorter. Control T. That's it. Okay, so we need to have some kind of basement. So let's just create another cube for that. And this cube will basically take up this entire space. So let's just make him wider. Something like that. Let's say just end up here. This will end up here. This will end up here, and this will end up here. That's it, perfect. So now we want to add a little bit more detail here. So for that, I'm gonna again start with the cube, pull this up, and basically make it thinner. Okay, something like that. Now, if you want, you can keep it straight, or you can also make it slanting, like so. Not that much. Okay, now to give a little stand for these guys, we can have two other pieces of wood. I can basically duplicate this, Control D, pull this out, make it go like so. It needs to be much thinner, so let's just make it thin. There you go, make it shorter. Let's just go from the side view, make it smaller. There you go. That's cool. Let's just make a duplicate of that, and to the other side I can actually turn on my grid snap and snap it exactly to that point so that they will maintain the same distance between them, right? Now, just for more added support, we can also add one more piece of wood right in the middle, Control D, just rotate him 90 degrees. Just pull it, something like that. Keep him somewhere here and scale it up until it reaches there. Because these shapes are inside another shape, you don't have to worry about tweaking them or making sure how far they're inside. It should be fine by itself. Now I can actually extend this space here, so let's just go ahead and insert a couple of edge loops. So one here. Now we can actually take these references here based on these guys. So I can just select these two vertices and press X using the move tool. I can snap it here. And this one I can snap it here. So that'll give a little bit more extra space than the shape that we have. So let's just select that, extrude, and pull it out as much as you want. Okay, so here's where it's ending, so maybe till here or just here. I think here till here is fine. So press X, snap it exactly to that point. There you go. So now, just to make a little bit more fancy stuff, we can also add more vertical bars here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually duplicate these pieces to create a bit more fancy look. I'll just go ahead and select 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, right? I'm going to extract these faces, so let's just press shift right click and choose extract faces. So what it basically does is it just takes those faces out as a separate object, right? So let me just pull this out here so you can see that there's a hole here and these things just came out, right? Now once I made these faces come out, I can actually extrude these to basically create new shapes. So let's just pull this out, right? And I'm just going to take it out. Now if I take it out, you can see that this becomes a separate object. Now I don't want these holes here, so what I can do is I can simply go to edge, and you can actually double click on one of these edges to select all this edge loop, okay, which are exposed, and I can go to shift right click and choose fill hole. So that's basically going to fill that hole. Now if you are concerned about edge flows and stuff like that, you can just add a couple of more edge loops here. So by going to multi-cut tool, I can just add one from here to here. Okay, press enter, and from here to here. Here to here. Okay, so you don't have to do this method also. You can also do create this same shape just by creating a cube and extruding. I'm just trying to show you different methods that you can use in Maya to get different kinds of work done, right? So it would have been a little faster if you're just creating the cube and just extruding also. So the choice is yours, right? So I'm going to bring this pivot point right in the middle. So let's go to modify and center pivot, right? And I want to go back to my side view here and just pull this down. Okay, so you can see that we're actually making contact here with the previous one shape, right? Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go to select these guys and pull them out. Okay, and I want to bring them closer like so. Yes, that's exactly the shape that I wanted. And now I can actually make multiple copies of this. I'll just make it a bit smaller like so. Thinner basically. Yes. Now if you want to fancify it, you can also add other stuff. Like you can add a curve or whatever you want. But for me, I'm fine with that. Let me just push this somewhere here. So that's going to act like a border. I think it can come out also. I think that's fine, right? Now what I want to do is I want to make more copies of the same. So let's press Ctrl D, push this out like so, right? Press Shift D, Shift D, Shift D, and that creates a lot more shapes. This last guy, I can just keep him here. And that basically adds a little bit more detail to the house. Now if you want, you can also create a door and stuff like that. And just to finish off, we just want to add one more little piece of wood, which will basically come here. So it does not have to be a complete shape. We can also just fake it just here. Just make it a bit smaller, but a bit longer. I'll go to the side view here. And right there. Okay, it does not have to come out this much. I think it should be a bit more down. There you go. Basically this is the piece of wood that's holding this guy, so it needs to be long till the end. I'll do that. Select, go to vertex, and right in the front view select this guy, push him all the way to the end. Okay, so now one last thing that we want to do is Ctrl D and push him to the other side, and on the other side we will just snap it exactly to that grid point, Ctrl X, and that should be in the center, and that's it. So this completes this tutorial in creating this wooden house in Maya 2020. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you do, hit the like button. If you don't, hit the dislike button. And as always, subscribe to the channel if you're new. And keep watching and happy learning. See you in the next video.